Hello, I thought I would make a video, something I've been pondering, how to give a general reading that is also a very personal reading to you, the individual that is listening to this and watching this video. A tarot card that comes up quite a lot, I would say, is this card from the Major Arcana. In this particular deck, it is the Hanged Woman, card number 12. Or it is the Hanged Man in more conventional decks, but the meaning is exactly the same. Interesting that it is the number 12 when you consider, if we look at it from a religious perspective, you have the Christ and 12 disciples. If we turn that inward into the mind, you have the 12 cranial nerves. You have the 12 zodiac signs, although there's actually 13. But regardless of whether something actually is true or not, if it is told enough and played out enough and enacted upon enough, it does take on a life of its own, a reality. A prime example of this would be how many young boys feel inspired that they want to become an astronaut. Just one example. I'm not going to say any more about that. I'll leave you to, well, if you're listening to this, I feel that you'll know enough about that anyway. But anyway, the Hanged Woman, or the Hanged Man. What have we actually got here? Well, the most obvious thing is that it represents you, the individual, the critical thinker, the free spirit, in Archaix terminology, the errant, one that goes their own way, one that sees through the BS of this reality, the belief systems of this reality, which are generally false, be it religion, science, or whatever. That inner knowing that, no, this is not right. What I'm being told, what I'm being presented is not how things are. The further you go down this spiritual path, you will start to see the world in a very different way. But what also comes with that is being attached to what truly matters, which is represented by the tree. It has its roots in the earth. It is growing towards the light. It is about spiritual growth. It is a spiritual tree. If we turn to mythology, I know it from Wagner's Ring Cycle, the story of Wotan, ruler of the gods, which is also Odin in Scandinavian, who went and hung himself upside down from a tree, which is probably where this idea comes from. And he gained knowledge by seeing the world in a very different way. This is the card that really represents the critical thinker, the free spirit, because you start really seeing the world very different from the illusion of the Maya that it is. So it's a perfect card to represent, it's going to sound very cliche, anybody that is listening to this, just consider what prompted you to click on the video, because this is for you in the now. It is outside the realms of time. But what I've been pondering is, how do I give you, the individual, your own reading, as much as anything else, as a taster of the personalized one-to-one tarot card readings that I can give you? So I'm giving you here a free personal reading, but it is for the many at the same time. It sounds like a bit of a conundrum, a bit of a contradiction, you could say. But is it? Because there is a commonality for anybody that is walking that spiritual path, that you begin to see the world in a very different way from the majority, from the collective. That then leads to a common theme question that is as relevant to you as anybody else that may at some point listen to this video. So out of curiosity, I thought, let's see what the cards say. Now, to get the right answer requires the right question to be asked. So I pondered this, looked at the commonality of the free thinker. What is it that often comes up? That thing about being the black sheep in the family. So the question I asked was, what does the free spirit do if surrounded by energy vampires? What do the cards advise? So it could be that you're in an environment where all those around you are what you would call asleep, oblivious to the spiritual world, seeing things very much in the material, still chasing the material dream, thinking that voting is going to change the world, or they may be involved in something that is going to fix the entire world, end wars, end cancer, end heart disease, and so on and so on. But you, as that free thinker, already know that it all starts within. You've already got to this stage of being the hanged man or the hanged woman. So anyway, I thought, let's do a 5-card spread. This card will come back into it as well. This represents you, the individual. So I pulled out 5 cards. This is purely intuition led. If I do a 7-card reading, I normally have the backstory with 4 cards, which that backstory, your past, is the foundation from those experiences that leads to the present, to the 3 cards. But this is to do with now and what the cards are going to say about where you are at the moment and what steps you can then take. It's quite open-ended with this reading, because down to the question I've asked, really. But we will carry this on in subsequent videos. So the first card to come out, let's put this so you can see it clearly, is 5 of Rivers. It's very much about when you take that first step on the spiritual path, where you start to see things in a very different way. The card represents accepting sorrow, loss or grief, and adapting to new situations. Otherwise, you're just going round in this loop of chasing the material success of this world. But you've got to the stage where you're seeing things in a different way. Your perception of things, your attitude towards things is moved from that sort of looking up to, say, Hollywood stars and wanting that very wealthy material lifestyle, that gated mansion, because those things start to lose value. They lose all meaning to you. So there is a sort of grief and a loss and a sadness that will come with that. And if we put it into the context of the household you may be in, those that are still in that very low vibration state, you're going to feel that sadness and loss, that you'll start to separate from those people, because you'll find that you can't even talk to them. You cannot communicate with them. So there is that stage to go through. But it's a step in the direction. It always comes with a negative presentation first. How you handle that will then lead on to the next card, because you'll either stay stuck in that loop or something new will open up for you. That is your intuition. It's represented by the knower of birds. Now, let's just think about this in the famous Bible story. Noah. What did he do? He had an ark that rode out this storm where it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. What did they do? They kept sending out a bird that would hopefully come back with a twig to say, this is the direction to go in. We found the promised land, you could say. So is it any coincidence that it's the knower of birds that comes out? And in a way, it sort of is sort of depicting in this card, this is like the spiritual downloads coming into you and the listening to your intuition. In a way, you could say it is also a coat of many colors. It's the activating chakra system inside you. The knower of birds represents wisdom, knowledge, and the development of ideas. So the ark, in that sense, your vessel, you're riding out a storm of the uncomfortable, being surrounded by those that are on a very different polarity, because it is all about this flipping the polarity, seeing the world is upside down and crazy. So next in the sequence comes the speaker of rivers. It's a phase that you'll go through. You'll still be in some way in that old pattern of trying to help others that are just not ready to have that help. They're not spiritually mature enough. They're not open-minded enough. But there is the storytelling from the imagination. It does come with the power to inspire or heal others. So it's not a bad thing to go through. It is a necessary step. It is an experience. Because in the early stages, we could say, oh, it's not the way we've been told. And to someone who's not even looked into anything, they're going to think you're crazy. But you can break through that. That will come from the experience of doing that. But more often than not, it comes with a sort of disappointment and a feeling of isolation. So that leads us on to the next card that came out, the Five of Trees. Let me just recap here. So we had the Five of Rivers. Now we've got the Five of Trees. The five cards can be a very strange card. They're like the midway point. And they really are looking for a movement, or they are indicating the movement. So this Five of Trees is about inner meanings, a time of withdrawal to nurture the true self. It is that going within, that going into a meditation, or whichever way you find works best for you. I call it immersion. Follow your passion. Immerse yourself in the thing that really holds your interest to the point where you have a slight disconnect, where you can lose track of time. You see, in the background here, you have the material world, but you are now looking very different. You are standing out. You are the one that's the free thinker that's going their own way, but you are rooted in earth and you are growing. And it is through that soul searching, that going within, that's what this card represents. There was something else that's just flashed into my mind, and as quick as I try and think of it, it seems to be going again. It may well come back in a moment. Ah, yes, I know what it is now. Now, if you notice, we have a theme here with trees. Maybe not so apparent in this one, but the staff obviously is made from a tree. The bird that brings Noah back the twig is obviously part of a tree. So just put these cards back. And also you have very much a water theme, a going with a flow, a very different flow. You could say, if you were to take this as a physical thing, I'm not recommending that you do this, go and hang upside down from a tree. But I'm sure you've had the expression about you'd get a head rush. All the blood would go to your head, to your brain. But let's just look at this in a more esoteric way. What does the blood represent? It represents life. It freely flows. It's not being pumped by the heart because the heart is not a pump. The heart is a regulator. That's why, for those that have had surgery, they have a pacemaker. It's setting a pace, which sort of references exactly what the heart does. It regulates the flow of the blood. The valve will open more when it needs to circulate quicker. So in this state of being the hanged man or the hanged woman, all the blood is going to the head. All the life is going to the mind. It's what then allows this sort of becoming a knower of birds. Birds represents air and therefore spirit. So it is very much to do with the spiritual downloads. And I've got these cards a little bit muddled up. And of course, where does this card lead? Our good old friend, what I call the Phoenix card, the place of birds. It's a card I've featured many times in recent videos, or several times at least. The place of birds, it's a place of remoteness, and it's a separation from the emotional involvements. It ties back nicely into the answer to the question of this reading. What should the free thinker do? Let go of the emotional attachments. See things in a more objective way. Take the higher view. The card represents creativity and the realization of projects. So it is as much as anything else, it's onward and upward. It's your internal phoenix rising within to see the higher view of things, which has come from seeing the world in a very different way. By having those spiritual downloads, by listening to your intuition as your true guide, by rooting yourself into what is, as opposed to the material world around you. So creativity, realization of projects, seeing it through, that is what the cards are saying. Let go of emotional attachments. For some of you, that may mean removing you from a particular environment, maybe a relocation, maybe a change of career. Because if you're surrounded with people that are really negative, what you'd call energy vampires, you're gonna feel like you've had the life drained out of you. And what is the life? It's the blood. So it's a sort of you could say it's the blood sucking. That's why it's called energy vampires. So the question is, how long can you sit in that discomfort? Because it's going to get more uncomfortable the more you see things in a different way and just stay there. You cannot stay there. You need to progress to get to this phoenix rising, that ascension inside oneself side. You can do that by replacing the void, that feeling that will come with the loss and the grief, the separation. And you can fill that void by doing something creative, seeing projects through to the end. Fill that time with something else. So to give you a sort of an everyday analogy, whereas on a Friday night you may have gone down to the local bar and drunk beer all night, replace that loss with maybe, I don't know, perhaps your passion is to do painting on canvas. Immerse yourself in that instead. It's a stepping stone, this phoenix rising inside oneself. Something else has just popped into my mind. I don't think I've said this already on this video, but there's a channel called Niven. Now I'm going to put a link to his channel. Now he definitely is a free thinker in what he shows on the videos, and trees and the patterns in trees are very much being reflected in this reality in the context of the world tree, which brings us back to this card. Because in the mythology of Odin hanging from the world tree and gaining the knowledge, what Niven shows about trees may surprise you. You may not agree with it, but we can have differences, different perspectives on things. That's not the point here. The point is we do have a connection to trees. We do have roots on the top of our head where our hairs join. It's what Rudolf Steiner describes humankind as the upside down plant man. Because our roots aren't in earth, we have the ability, unlike a tree, to be able to move about freely, which I feel self-references that we are free spirits. But we're also beings, so as much as anything else, it is about being, it is about going through that contemplation. But then be able to have that pole shift, as it were. And even this way, when we turn the card up the other way, do these not look also like tree roots? Is that not just basically a mirror between what you can see and what goes on beneath in what you can't see? But what rises up is like a metaphorical tree, which is expressed as a bird, a phoenix bird, you could say. So that is the advice of the cards. Keep going your own way. Where you have these feelings of loss and what would feel like a void, an empty space, you can replace that by putting something creative into that space, by following your passion. What is your passion? Well, ask yourself the question, what is it that really captivates your attention? What is it that you could do where you have this slight disconnect through this immersion, this kind of meditation, where you can disconnect to some degree from this reality and go on that inner journey? That is the advice from the cards across this reading. So, just as a sort of, let's get the 5 cards here. So what did we start with here? 5 of Rivers, then we had the Knower, and then we had the Speaker. That's your sort of now moment, as it were. So that's your like foundation from now with across these 3 cards. Upon that foundation is what comes next in these 2 cards. The growing, the ascension. But we're in a realm of duality. So there's a coming together, a sort of unification, as it were. So if you take these 3 cards to represent the base layer of a pyramid, now we put 2 cards on top of that. What are we missing? The chief cornerstone, the capstone. this card. You are that chief cornerstone in your pyramid inside yourself. As I've said on previous videos, the Great Pyramid of Giza is an architectural representation of human physiology and what goes on inside in those internal hidden chambers within each of you. So if you like this little taster of a type of tarot card reading you could have that's individually tailored to you as a one-to-one tarot card reading, then the door is open for you. It is about stepping into the unknown, but I feel you'll be very surprised at what comes out of a reading, how it can help you see exactly where you are. Because how are you going to know where to go from this point onwards unless you know where you are? It's about looking back in the past, realizing that there are experiences that have been there to guide you, that has brought you to now. But what are you going to do with those experiences? Where are you going to take it? Follow your passion, follow your bliss will be the answer. So there will be further readings like this to come with the more common questions of how do we deal with this, the things that we all go through. Because I feel I can do a more general reading when it is a common question like that. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it has brought some clarity to you. Maybe it's even resonated, and the resonance is the vibration. What you hear as words, where you decode sounds, because they are just vibrations, and you do that sort of pole shift of those sounds and you turn them into words that you then understand. But equally important is to learn that internal language that is coming up from the intuition. That is your tree that grows inside you. That is your tree of life. That is your tree of knowledge of good and evil. Within your world, there is a Garden of Eden. You are that energy den. What are you going to do with that energy? Right, I think we'll end there. And as always, unconditional love to you all.